They say money can buy almost anything, but never the things that give life its deepest meaning. Love, sincerity, the word mth of home, those cannot be bought. This is the story of a man who had everything in the eyes of the world, yet discovered he had nothing when it came to the heart. His name was Alonso Marquez, a millionaire whose life was about to change forever, because of a simple lunchbox. Alonso was the kind of man people envied. He lived in a penthouse on the top floor of the tallest building in the city. He drove cars worth more than most people's homes. He wore suits stitched by the best designers. His name carried weight in the business world, investors lined up to work with him, politicians shook his hand, employees feared and respected him. But when the doors of his luxurious apartment closed at night, there was only silence. Silence and a heavy emptiness that all the money in his accounts could never fill. One morning, Alonso arrived earlier than usual at his glass-walled office. He was tense, worried about a contract worth millions that seemed to be slipping through his fingers. As he flipped through papers, his eyes caught sight of something completely out of place. On the edge of his polished wooden desk sat a small plastic lunchbox, bright pink, with scratches on the lid from years of use. It looked cheap, ordinary, almost childish, and in that room of marble, leather chairs, and expensive artwork, it didn't belong. With a frown, Alonso called out, "Whose is this?" His secretary, barely looking up from her computer, answered casually, "It must belong to Lucía, sir. The cleaning lady. She comes in early to tidy up your office. Maybe she left it there by mistake." Lucía. The name barely registered in Alonso's mind. She was one of those workers who passed through his world like shadows, always present, never seen. Quiet, efficient, invisible. But the box stirred his curiosity. Almost against his own pride, he reached for it and snapped it open. Inside was not the kind of meal he was used to. No gourmet steak, no imported cheese, no delicacy from his personal chef. Instead, there were 3 handmade corn tortillas wrapped in a clean cloth, a portion of beans cooked with onions, a spoonful of rice with carrots, a small piece of cheese, and a single red apple. On top, carefully folded, lay a napkin with words written in pen. Alonso picked it up and unfolded it. His eyes froze on the message, "Daughter, may your hard work never make you forget how valuable you are. With love, Mom." His throat tightened. For the first time in years, he felt his eyes sting with tears. That simple note dragged him back to a memory he had buried long ago. His own mother. When he was just a boy, she used to slip small notes into his school notebooks. Notes of encouragement, of love. Notes stopped receiving the day she passed away, just when he had begun chasing wealth, determined to never be poor again. He had succeeded, yes. But what had it cost him? He was still staring at the note when the office door cracked open. Lucía stepped in quietly, her hair tied back neatly, her uniform spotless despite the hours of work. She froze when she saw him holding her lunchbox. Her face turned pale with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said quickly. "I must have left it by mistake." Alonso looked up at her, not with his usual cold eyes, but with something softer. "You prepared this?" he asked. Lucía nodded timidly. "Yes, sir. It's just what I make every morning. For myself and for my mother at home." Alonso surprised himself with his next words. "May I try it?" Lucía blinked, confused. No millionaire had ever asked to taste her food. She hesitated, then gave a small nod. Alonso picked up a tortilla, folded it with some beans, and took a bite. The flavor was simple, earthy, honest, and yet it struck him harder than any delicacy from the finest restaurants. It was the taste of care, of love, the taste of home. He chewed slowly, and for the first time in years, he felt nourished not just in body, but in soul. From that day, Alonso began to notice Lucía. He asked her about her cooking, about her mother, about her life. She told him about the small neighborhood where she lived, about her sick mother who depended on her, about the long mornings she spent preparing food so she could save money and keep her family traditions alive. Alonso listened with fascination. He had spent his life surrounded by powerful people, yet none of them had spoken with such honesty. Days turned into weeks. Alonso began seeking her out. He asked her one afternoon, "Would you teach me how to make tortillas like this?" She laughed softly at the absurdity of a millionaire in a designer suit wanting to cook, but she agreed. Another day, he offered to join her on her weekly trip to the local market. She tried to refuse, but insisted. And so, The powerful businessman walked through crowded aisles filled with vegetables, fresh bread, and chatter. Vendors stared, children pointed. What was a man like him doing there? But Alonso didn't care, asked about prices, clumsily tried to haggle, carried bags of tomatoes while Lucía laughed at his clumsy effort. He felt alive in a way a hand in decades. Back at the office, his behavior began to change. He organized small lunches where employees were invited to bring food from home and share it. He listened more to their stories, gave them more time to be with their families. His board of directors frowned. You're getting distracted, they warned. This is not good for business. But Alonso only smiled. For the first time in his life, business was not his only priority. Slowly, he realized what was happening. He was falling in love. Not with the food, though he cherished it. Not with her beauty, though she had a quiet grace. But with Lucia's strength, her honesty, her kindness. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Lucía, however, was courteous. She had seen how men with money treated women like her. She didn't want to be a passing amusement for a bored rich man. One evening, when Alonso hinted at his feelings, she looked him in the eyes and said, I don't want your money. I don't want your luxury. If you truly mean what you say, show me with your actions. Show me that it's not just a game. Alonso nodded. He understood. From then on, he didn't just speak, he acted. He visited her mother, offering quiet help without showing off. He learned to cook her family's recipes, failing at first but logging alongside her as he tried again. He spent time not as a boss, not as a millionaire, but simply as a man learning to live differently. Then came the day when Alonso gathered his employees for a major announcement. Everyone expected news of a new investment, another massive deal. Instead, he stood before them and said, from now on, part of this company's profits will go into opening community kitchens in the poorest neighborhoods. No one should go hungry while we have the means to help. The room fell silent. Then, slowly, his workers began to clap. Reporters rushed to ask him why he would make such a decision. Alonso smiled faintly and said, because one lunchbox reminded me of what really matters. And there, among the crowd, stood Lucía. Her eyes glistened with tears of pride. Alonso walked toward her, unafraid, and gently took her hand in front of everyone. From that moment, their lives changed. The man who once had everything but felt nothing finally discovered what he had been missing, someone to share his life with. And the woman who carried her humble lunchbox each morning had, without meaning to, given him the greatest gift of all, love. True wealth, Alonso realized, was not in bank accounts or luxury cars. It was in the little things. In a simple tortilla made with care. In a handwritten note from a mother. In the company of someone who saw his heart, not his fortune. And so, the millionaire who once dined in the finest restaurants now cherished most the meals made in a modest kitchen, carried in a worn-out pink lunchbox. Because those meals carried something money could never buy, the flavor of love, the taste of home.